Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a hypnosis session designed for a client that was vaping, and they were vaping quite a lot, and they would have additional vapes on hand just in case they ran out of either power or liquids in one of the vapes. And therefore, it was clear that this was quite a strong habit. The definition of an addiction, to contrast it with a habit is an unconscious behavior that you can just stop if you choose to. Whereas an addiction is that even if you want to stop, you can't. That kind of defines it as an addiction. And you can have stronger addictions and weaker addictions. And the level of strength of an addiction, you can call it a compulsion. So a compulsion is a very, very strong desire to do something. So if you've heard the phrase obsessive compulsive disorder, that's because the compulsion to do something specific is very, very strong. Now, this client didn't have obsessive compulsive disorder, but they did have a real craving, a tendency to desire. And what would happen if they would go for anything longer than about an hour without vaping? They would have an inner dialogue phrase that would say, I need to vape right now. So it had urgency and it also had necessity, the two ingredients that get anything done, pretty much. So what you're going to hear is a hypnosis session designed to introduce incremental changes to start to break that pattern. And the first is to encourage the client to switch to a nicotine-free liquid. And the reason for that, it doesn't stop the vaping, but what it does do is it enables them to create a new belief, which is that it can't be a nicotine addiction if they are vaping a nicotine-free liquid. So that's one step in the process. The second is that whenever they were at anyone else's home other than their own, out of courtesy, out of respect, they would always vape outside. But in their own home and in their own workplace, they would vape inside. And in their home, it was in a particular location. And in their workplace, it was inside a cabin, but only if nobody else was there. So this idea of, well, if you have that same boundary that is already there for other people in the work environment and the home environment, that would probably reduce the amount of vaping by at least 60, 70% or even more. The third key ingredient is that they had a family member, a young family member that really wanted them to stop. And it was difficult for them to go from vaping all the time to not vaping at all. So this created a stepping stone to make progress. So the unconscious contract they were making with themselves is to not to vape in the company of this particular person. And by doing so, it would then give them evidence that they can go without. And if you can go without for a few hours and you do that more frequently, then you can get to a stage where you're not vaping at all. And every smoker, every vapor has the experience of having a period of time where they don't. And that might be a long flight or a long movie or a long car journey. If they're on public transport, it might be a train journey. But sleeping definitely is the case. Unless they're waking up in the middle of the night, there is at least 6, 7, 8 hours where they don't smoke or vape during that time period. And all of this is evidence that it isn't a need. So you're going to hear a key part of this that aims to update the inner dialogue to change it from I really need to vape right now to, I really don't need to vape. Or even turning into a question, I need to vape right now? And sometimes the same words with a different tonality or a different inflection can turn a compulsion, which creates a craving, to more a curious statement that makes you think, well, no, I don't. So if you have a vaping habit, this might be useful in the sense that it creates boundaries that would represent progress. What I would encourage you to do, because obviously you weren't the client I was working with, to think of what would be 2 or 3 easy things you can do to dramatically reduce the amount that you vape. And the goal might be that you don't vape at all, but this is a very powerful stepping stone to get to that place, which itself is quite useful. If you feel that you would benefit from working with me directly, there will be a link in the show notes where you can schedule a completely free consultation call to explore working with me, or you can check out my website, adamcox.co.uk. For now, though, find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a slow, calm, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, just allow any feelings of tension, stress, any worries to feel that they're being released. That as you breathe in, you're breathing in a wonderful feeling of calm relaxation. And scan your body for any clues of tension. Maybe it's in your forehead, the tiny muscles, those same muscles responsible for facial expressions like concern or surprise. And you can just loosen those muscles. Feel a wave of relaxation. Allow that relaxation to spread into the eyebrows and eyelids, all the way down into the jaw. Feel a lightness, kind of lightness that if your head was as light as a helium balloon, there would be no need for tension in your neck or your shoulders. So just feel this wonderful feeling of calm relaxation as your breathing becomes deeper and slower. Feel that you're drifting off to the kind of place where changes are possible. You couldn't keep your life exactly the same even if you wanted it. Things will change. You believe things now you didn't used to. There are certain ways of doing things that you didn't used to do before. Change is natural, and the best changes happen slowly and And with tiny incremental changes, almost unnoticeable, there was a time in your life where you changed from one brand to another brand, and then you just stuck with that new brand. There was a way of getting from one place to another, and you took a different route once, and you still follow that same route today. Sometimes the most powerful changes are doing something different once. Because when you do that new thing, the new thing, if it's slightly better than the old thing, becomes the new default, the standard way of doing certain things. You have a way of signing your name. You have a way of tying your shoelaces. And although there are lots of different ways you could do things, once you find a way that works, it becomes natural to keep doing that thing. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to think of tiny, almost insignificant changes that could create a complete change of trajectory, taking your future to a different destination. I want you to imagine the next time you're buying a vape or the liquids for the vape. I want you to imagine either requesting or choosing a nicotine-free version. Imagine choosing it, paying for it, and then using it. And while it may seem almost a totally insignificant change, you might find that by doing that once, you're giving evidence to yourself that it isn't the nicotine you're addicted to. Sometimes people will use the particular phrase, "I need something," if they feel that they are addicted. But if you know you're not addicted and it's just a habit, how can it be a need? And if you can imagine buying that nicotine-free liquid, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine all the different places that you've bought in the past. Imagine buying the nicotine-free version in those same places in your future. And imagine going off into the future 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of only buying or consuming nicotine-free liquids for the vape. And if you feel that there is no resistance to that tiny change, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. I want you to think about an unconscious rule you have when it comes to vaping in other people's homes. You would never dream of just vaping in someone else's room, someone else's lounge or kitchen, out of consideration, respect, and politeness. When you vape, you only vape outside. And if your unconscious is willing to apply that same rule to your own home, to create just enough of a subtle change to reduce how much you vape, let me know by nodding your head. So imagine doing that. Imagine that you're in your own home and you feel a desire to vape. So you grab that nicotine-free vape and imagine vaping outside, but imagine vaping for less time because it's outside. And imagine repeating that. All those times you used to vape in the kitchen, feel that that is now in your future outside and for less time. And maybe when you vape outside, you could also decide to not be on your phone at the same time. And maybe the combination of vaping outside and not also looking into your phone could reduce the amount you vape by 60 or 70 or even 80% or more. And if it feels like that might be true, let me know by nodding your head. So imagine weeks of doing that, of only imagining vaping outside. And maybe there's a possibility you could imagine also applying that same rule in your work environment. That even if there's no people in the cabin, you would go outside to vape. And if that was true, if you feel it would dramatically reduce the amount you vape, let me know by nodding your head. And all of these things are winnable, tiny things that you need the discipline and the willpower the first time you do something new. The first time you buy that nicotine-free liquid requires a bit of discipline, because autopilot would send you into what you've done before. But once you've done it once, you can do it again. And the very first time you choose to vape outside rather than the kitchen requires a bit of discipline. But the second time requires less, and the third time less still, and the 10th time requires no discipline whatsoever, because that is now just what you do. Your unconscious is willing to give you just enough discipline to do the first few attempts in this new way. Let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine you've got unlimited attempts until you build new habits. Habits that are slightly different from your current habits, but not completely different. But sending you on a pathway that means it's easier and easier to make even more changes. And then imagine there is one particular person you would do anything for. Imagine their face. And imagine playing a game. And the game is to not vape at all when they're around. To see how long it takes for them to notice the change. I want you to imagine it's the very first time. And that very first time, imagine you've got that playful discipline to try something different. And imagine that you've got a full water bottle flavored with a particular juice. Whenever any thoughts of vaping come to mind, you just take a tiny sip from that water bottle. And I want you to imagine, maybe after an hour, maybe two, this person notices you're not vaping. I want you to see that unfiltered, positive reaction when they notice that change for the very first time, as you come to the conclusion no amount of vaping could feel this good, that the happiness of those people you love is more important than any amount of vaping. Imagine it's the very first time with that person that you were willing not to vape for leaves, and maybe you choose to vape nicotine-free vapes outside after they leave. I want you to still feel that that is success, because you now have evidence that you can manage to not vape when you put something more valuable. But rather than making the evaluation that you need to vape, you're making a new evaluation that people, your health is more important than any vape. That you're willing to do more for others than you would for yourself. And if there are any thoughts, change the tonality of those thoughts to questions. I need to vape? And the more of a question it sounds, the more it invites a response. Of course not. I don't need it. I'm not sure I even want it. And it's easier to have that response when the thought is a question. In the past, it may have felt, I need to vape. But now, feel that a tiny change is taking place, where it's a question. I need to vape? And you realize there are no circumstances that you would actually need to vape. And therefore, you get to respond to that question, I need to vape, with whatever comes to mind that takes any motivation or desire to vape all the way down to a take it or leave it level. So you could arrive at the conclusion, you're a full-grown adult. You can vape if you want. But what if you don't want to? And with that take it or leave it approach, it gets easier and easier to imagine a future where you can vape if you want. You just don't want to as often. I want you to imagine unlocking whatever resources are needed to make these tiny incremental changes. The first time you buy nicotine-free liquid, the first time, and perhaps the next time, that you choose to vape outside, even in your own home. And that first time you're willing to not vape around a particular person, and notice that the person could change. It might start off being one person, and once you no longer vape around them, it could be someone else, and you no longer vape around them, until you could imagine a future that most people wouldn't even know you vape at all. And maybe the final person that you don't vape around is yourself. Just an additional person you no longer vape in their company. But let's start easy. Someone you meet perhaps twice a week. You don't vape around them because you know it would make them happy. And if this new game feels winnable, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And feel like you can return to the present as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, connect fully with the present moment as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.